Nice crowd.
Well, not too bad for a snowy day.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just, you could probably go into so many different paths doing that.
Oh, for the one time ever, we got a plate this morning, which is always a relief because I'm thinking, wow, I slept for like 4 hours straight. But then when you can see the sun come up this time of year, yeah.
I was happy I slept until 7:10 today.
I know.
Pretty good.
This is the latest I've slept.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
How are you?
Good, how you doing?
Good, I like your shirt.
Oh, thanks.
Very neon.
Yeah, I like bright colors.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Well, you won't get hit by a car probably.
No. It's hard to tell how icy the roads are this morning.
Yeah, they're pretty slick.
Yeah, 21 coming over was
Where'd you
solid
come
glare.
from?
Lowell.
Oh, yeah, I figured.
Lynn? Good.
Well, I will pass it on to him. He's a good guy. He's not on the secretary of this. So he told me earlier that I'm going to do everything possible. Please don't.
Yeah, right, I keep up. I gotta try to follow them.
He's a dentist.
Hi, Roger.
Yeah. No, I
I think this was out in Michigan too. My sister's not, but my dad's just we live right in the same neighborhood. He helps get my kids around at orchestra concerts. He's shuttling kids around. But for the family, I couldn't do it.
mildly,
So I will tell you that appreciate it.
coincidental.
All the beds.
Hi, you guys. I am Allie Cook. We're not starting quite yet. I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm the chair of the Ionia Dems. Thanks for coming today. And we have a very unofficial yellow sheet, sign-in sheet. So if you're new here or we've never seen you, please sign in. It's just for our own use, ICDP. We also have a birthday party. Happy birthday, Michigan, on the 26th of January. We're going to hold it at the Blanchard House, which is right downtown Ionia, just right down Main. So we'd love to have you all there. Grab one of these. I think we're wait a couple more minutes. You want to wait a couple more minutes, or?
Yeah, how's your schedule? I mean, are you razor thin where you have to be?
No, we don't know the road, but no, I had to be back. I'm good.
Okay. All right.
One of our members, Greg Greaves, brought us a Christmas present, and I think it's Michigan-made chocolates. It is. And so it's from a Michigan company, and so it's really important to buy local. So I think everybody here, if you'd like a chocolate, come up and grab one. Compliments of Greg Greaves. Thank you, Greg.
Let's put it on the sign-in table.
Okay.
We said hello downstairs.
And while they're hot.
You know what? Please, wait in.
Yeah, I'm working. I'm hoping. I want to get it right. There's gonna be a statue of Bob. I'm gonna get a lot of you. Been around that long, they'll make a statue of one of our.
Would you like a chocolate?
I'm all set, but thank you.
You doing okay? You doing okay? Yeah.
I bet we're ready.
We're ready?
I bet.
Okay.
Alright, and a green smoothie and now chocolate. Good day.
I think we're going to get started, so let's, Gretchen, why don't you come up and I'll introduce you, and then first,
Long enough so I can eat my caramel, will ya?
I will, okay. And we'll tell you if you have anything stuck in your teeth. My name's Nelson Brown. I'm vice chair of the Ionia Democratic Party. This is normally our regular meeting date. At this time, it's a special occasion because we have a special guest. Maybe some of you don't know everyone here. Everyone probably knows Allie in the back, who is chair of the party. And Heather Post is our secretary. Why don't you stand up, Heather? There we go. And then our money man, Tim Thompson, is our treasurer, but I think he's grandkidding today because it's for obvious since it's the holidays. So what we'll do is I'll introduce Gretchen. We will have she will answer questions for whatever, and then afterwards we'll have a short Democratic Party meeting. Gretchen is a recent returnee to Michigan. I'm glad.
Never left.
We never left. Well, I did my bit at Michigan State and then went to Chicago. But Gretchen has been involved in Democratic Party politics for a long time. She served, I believe, 6 months as prosecutor in Ingham County. And then she served, 4 years in the legislature?
14.
Oh, well, and how much in the Senate?
6 years in the House and 8 years in the Senate.
8 years in the Senate, okay. And now she is, I understand, a full-time candidate for governor of our great state. And without further ado, why don't you
All right. Thank
take
you.
a stand.
Thank you. So thank you. I'm just going to keep this here because it keeps me on track to make sure I cover all of the points that I want to. Maybe I shouldn't put it over here so I can get a little closer to you. So I want to start by saying thank you so much for getting out of bed and braving the snow and coming out to talk about an election that's almost a year away. Because I think that you know how important this next election is, just like I do, which is exactly why I jumped in this race for governor almost a year ago now. I've been thrilled to see the level of engagement and enthusiasm across our state as I have been traveling. And I have been putting a lot of miles on. Because I do believe that one of the most important things that we need to do as a Democratic Party is show up and to organize and to take this energy that is out there and throw it into the election for next year so that we start setting the agenda again. Now, I'm a lifelong Michigander. I love our state. I am proud to be from Michigan. But I gotta tell you, I look around at the Michigan that my kids are growing up in, and in a lot of ways, it doesn't resemble the one that I think of when I talk about my Michigan pride. You know, there was a point in time where families packed up their kids, all their belongings, and came to Michigan from, you know, from Louisiana, from Tennessee, from Kentucky, like my in-laws, or from Lebanon, you know, halfway around the world, because Michigan represented opportunity, a good job that paid you well enough that you could raise your family up, actually afford to buy the car you were making, and retire with dignity here. Michigan had phenomenal education system, so our kids were prepared and had the best skills coming out of the K-12 system. Michigan had roads that your family was safe on and that goods could get to where they needed to be because they were reliable and built right. Michigan, the Great Lakes state, had water that you knew it was clean coming out of your tap. And right now, I look around at the Michigan that our kids are growing up in, and you understand why people are looking elsewhere for opportunity. We deserve better. We deserve so much better than what we are getting from our leaders in Lansing. And I believe that as we look to next year, this is our opportunity to start setting the agenda and make this the Michigan that we deserve. Make this the Michigan that people move to again. Now, I served for 14 years in the Michigan legislature. I am no stranger to tough fights. I have never gone out of my way looking for a fight, but I've never backed down from one either. When the judges in my county asked me to come in and clean up the prosecutor's office after a scandal drove the prosecutor out of office, I took it on. When my colleagues in the Senate asked me to be the Democratic leader in a sea of Republicans, I took it on. When governors of both parties took money out of our education fund, I took them both on. And when the Republicans decided to lock the public out of the Capitol and attack our rights to collective bargaining, I took the whole Republican establishment on. I didn't just stand outside with the teachers and the firefighters and the auto workers who wanted to have our voices heard. I threw open the doors to the Capitol, and we led the resistance from my office. Because what I know is that when it's government that shuts us out and ignores us, it's government that doesn't focus on the things that we need. And that's precisely what's happening here in Michigan. Now, I started by telling you that I love our state. I have spent my whole life here. I grew up in East Lansing and Grand Rapids. I live in East Lansing right now with my family. I've got kind of a Brady Bunch blended family. I married a man with 3 boys, and I have 2 daughters myself. I chose to stay in Michigan when I graduated from MSU because I do love this state, and I wanted to be near my family. Just like this great family I was talking to earlier, I chose to be here near mine. And I bought a house in the neighborhood that I grew up in, and when my mom got sick with brain cancer, I was here to take care of her at the end of her life. I found myself as a freshman legislator. You know, they say the 5 most stressful things that happen to you in life are getting married, starting a new job, having a child, the death of a loved one. Oh God, I'm missing one.
Divorce is a big one.
Trump is president.
Trump is, all right, maybe we should add to the list, but anyway. But in my freshman term, and moving your house, that was the other one, okay. We're gonna add Trump too, 6, so, but, you know, all 5 of those things happened to me my freshman term in the legislature. I found myself a member of the sandwich generation. And for those of you that don't know the phrase, I was sandwiched between 2 generations of my own family that I was caring for. My daughter at the beginning of her life, and my mom at the end of hers. And I tell you that not because I want us all to feel sad, but because that experience didn't change any of my values. What it did was eliminate my patience for politicians that just want to politicize things instead of solving them. For people that want to manage our expectations instead of fighting for our aspirations. I know that we deserve better. Now, we got a lot of tough issues to take on here in Michigan. You know, they're urgent. And I think the last few years have been so much tougher for people in our state than even the last 8, the last few especially. I'm thinking about the Flint water crisis, a failure of government at every level.
has poisoned a community that still cannot, with confidence, bathe their children in the bathtub or give them a glass of water at the dinner table. I'm thinking about the unemployment insurance agency scandal, where the agency that was supposed to root out fraud screwed up and wrongfully accused people of trying to defraud the state. And our Attorney General, even though we know it was the state's fault, continues to pursue charges against people that were wrongfully accused of trying to defraud the state, driving Michiganders into bankruptcy who've done nothing wrong. We deserve better. Now, I was raised in a household with a Milliken Republican father and a Frank Kelly Democratic mother. And they didn't just vote that way. My dad actually was in the Milliken administration, and my mom was one of Frank Kelly's top lawyers in the Attorney General's office. We had some real interesting conversations always at our dinner table, but they always centered around three things. One, everyone is important. Two, our allegiance to Michigan is more important than our allegiance to a political party or even to a campaign donor. Yes, I'm a Democrat, but I'm a Michigander first, and I wish some of those people in Washington, D.C. would say they're Americans before that they are Republicans, frankly. And number three, it's the best public servants never compromise their values, but always seek to collaborate with anyone who wants to solve a problem. That's how I always tried to conduct myself when I was in the legislature. That's why I was never shy to get to the front line for education funding or for individual rights. That's why I took tough votes to fund things like infrastructure, because they were the right thing to do. But it's also why when this governor, who I disagree with on almost everything, when he embraced the Affordable Care Act, as the top Democrat in state government, I got to the table with him and negotiated, because I knew what Healthy Michigan, Medicaid expansion would mean for the people of this state. We negotiated that. I put the votes together, and we made it happen here in Michigan. Now 630,000 Michiganders have health care coverage who wouldn't have before. On the 1st of January, the minimum wage is going to go up because I was able to negotiate a cost of living increase into it when the Republicans were pushing through the effort on minimum wage. There are opportunities to collaborate, and I'm eager to do that with anyone who wants to solve a problem. But as I said, we never compromise our values. So as I think about where we are in Michigan, and as I'm listening to people across our state, from Go-Give-It County on the western end of the UP, to Ionia right now, to Brighton tomorrow, this is what I continuously hear. People want to know that our schools prepare our kids, that we have jobs that can sustain and support our families, and that government works. So when I think about schools, there are so many things that we need to do. First, I want to start by saying there was a point in time where our schools were the finest around. And after 25 years of the DeVos agenda in Michigan, we now rank in the bottom 10 for literacy for 4th graders. It's unconscionable. And so the way that we get back to a place where our education system is preparing our kids is, I've got a number of things that we need to do, but here's the thumbnail sketch. Early childhood education, so that every child coming into kindergarten is ready to learn. Number 2, we take Michigan from a bottom 10 in literacy to the state that solves the literacy problem that's plaguing our whole country. Number 3, when people are graduating from high school, they have a plan. Whether it's a plan for a 4-year degree or it's a skilled trade or something in between, that we've given kids the support they need to actually come out of high school with a plan. And number 4, treating educators like professionals. We've got to, anyone who's an educator in this room, most important person after the child in that classroom is the educator. And I don't just mean teachers, I mean the parapros and the counselors and the bus drivers who are the first person that a child sees in the morning. It's all a part of the education ecosystem, and we've got to start treating people with respect, empowering them, paying them. I talked to a teacher in Alpena, Michigan, who makes so little that with one child, she qualifies for food stamps.
How are we ever going to get great people to stay in education and to go into education if you can't put food on the table? Now, the second thing, so schools that teach, jobs that sustain families. So one of the things that we know is Michigan used to have the best skilled workforce around. And right now we have too few people in every discipline, from the skilled trades to four-year degrees. That means we've got to make four-year degrees affordable again, community college degrees free, and a skilled trade path, one that is obvious and easy path to navigate for anyone who wants to pursue that line of work. Because there is a great way to make a living in the skilled trades, and we've got too few people who are electricians to plumbers to drywallers and everything in between in our state. Number two, we've got to increase access to capital for small business people and entrepreneurs. I think we see so much growth in our economy in small business, people that are entrepreneurs. We got to make that easier for people. And number three, I knew I was going to need to look. The obvious. We need to rebuild our state. Let's put people to work rebuilding the infrastructure, rebuilding our bridges and our roads, and the pipes underneath our ground that brings the water to our households. We can get Michigan back to work and make this a state that people want to move to again if we do those things. And then the other big thing that I hear everywhere I go is about making government work for people again. People have lost confidence in our state, and yet it's understandable why. We don't have transparency in Michigan. We rank dead last when it comes to ethics and transparency in government. The Center for Public Integrity actually ranks Michigan dead last. It's not being hyperbolic, it's a fact. We can go from back of the pack to leaders with an executive who says we are going to open up the whole executive branch to the Freedom of Information Act. And we are going to demand that of the legislature too. We should never have a situation where we can't find out what the governor and the attorney general and the lieutenant governor did that contributed to the decisions that went into the poisoning of a city in this state. We should demand accountability, and it starts with opening up the executive office to transparency. It means that it's time to undo the Emergency Management Act that the Republicans ran through twice and did it in a way that took away our right of referendum. And number three, it is time to eliminate gerrymandering in Michigan so that our voices really do count. So I have to tell you, I feel like we're going into next year with real strength. The polling is great. The energy is real, and the organizations that are coming together and that my team is building, I think is going to be there. No one's ever seen anything like this before. We can't run campaigns the way that we used to. We've got to rebuild the grassroots and make use of every technology that is out there. As we go into next year, if you want to get involved in the campaign, if you want to be a part of this, I need your help, whether it's collecting signatures or it's hosting events or it's being a surrogate on my behalf, for speaking opportunities. There's a role for everyone, because this isn't about me. This is about us. This is about our Michigan. It's been too long since Michiganders have had someone in their corner. I'm ready to work with everyone who wants to solve a problem, and I'll take on anyone who stands in our way. I think together we can make the state where schools prepare kids, jobs sustain families, and government works for people again. Thank you.
I think we'll open it up for questions.
Yes, that's the best part.
Someone draws a hard question.
But I'm gonna grab my water. I just look there. All right, what do I need to go get you some coffee or what? Yes.
Well, if you were elected, how would you take on the continuing saga of Flint?
So, how do we take on the continuing saga of Flint? That's the question. When the Republicans pushed through the Emergency Management Act, we knew what their intention was, right? To just eviscerate local control. And they've used it in communities of color and communities with high poverty and with devastating consequences. The problem that they've created in Flint is one that is gonna have lifetime consequences for 8,000 children that were drinking leaded water for over 2 years when their governor said relax, right? And so they are rebuilding some of the infrastructure under the ground, but the decisions have just wreaked havoc on everyone's water heaters even within their homes. That part has not been fixed. That part is not on the agenda to be fixed, but we haven't solved any of the water coming out of the pipe problem until that happens. And so that's gotta be a part of the solution for the next governor. Number two, we need to create a sustained restricted fund so that there's wraparound supports for the children of Flint. There are known ramifications that from health problems that are gonna happen, but there's a lot of unknown too. We've got 8,000 kids who are gonna have everything from developmental issues to emotional and mental deficits, or could if they don't get all of the remediation that they need. And so I think that that's got to be a big piece of it too. I remember listening to Governor Snyder give his State of the State this last January, and he spent more time bragging about how much money he's put in the rainy day fund than talking about what's going on in Flint, Michigan. If you've got a city full of poisoned families, there's no worse rainy day than that, I don't think. And so I think this has got to be top priority. At the end of year one, I want to be able to say we have fixed the problem in Flint, and we've got a dedicated source of support for the children who are going to have a lifetime of issues to overcome. But our water problems aren't limited to Flint, and you know it. On the west side here, I know there are many communities across our state that have got water quality problems with the old pipes that are underneath the ground, and so we really have to have a long-term strategy to replace pipes across the state of Michigan, and that's not going to be easy. And it, but we can't say that we're moving Michigan ahead and making the place people want to move to until we do that. So I think that's got to be a part of the year one agenda as well. Yeah.
When I talk to Republicans, one of the statements I say to them is, money is more important than people. Stop and think about it. That's just how Republicans think. Money is more important than people. And all the things you're talking about, it's all money, not people.
Mm-hmm. Well, the good news is, while they got more money, we have more people.
Yes.
Which means we've got more votes.
Yes.
Which means we
If they
can
get
win
out
this
and
next
vote.
election. Right, exactly.
Do you have any special plan as far as Detroit is concerned to get the black vote out?
Yeah, I am, like I said, I've been aggressively getting across the state. I've been to 50 out of 83 counties now. I'm gonna get into every one of them. I'm gonna spend a lot of time in our population centers. I've got a lot of endorsements and work that we're doing in terms of an agenda that tackles some of the issues that families are confronting in every community. And Detroiters are worried about their kids' schools, they're worried about jobs, and they're worried about government accountability just like people in Bessemer, Michigan. I think that's where we as Democrats really got to get back to focusing on the dinner table issues that made this such a great party of the people. When you're worried about your child, or you're worried about putting food on the table, or you're worried about the quality of water coming out of your tap, you don't have energy to focus on all the other things that we all care about in this room. So we got to get back, I think, to those dinner table issues. And Detroiters are no different than people in Ionia when it comes to those fundamental issues that we got to solve. And I think that this last election, I don't think Democrats showed up like the candidate and the party and the organization, and I don't think that they closed on an agenda to give people something to vote for. Mm-hmm. You can't win just by saying why the other guy's not worth your vote. You got to give people something to vote for, and I think that that's two of the important lessons from last year that we are definitely abiding. Yes.
Hi Gretchen, I'm Lynn, in case you've forgotten. We've met several times. Kind of a hard question to ask, but it's tough to be a female candidate. It's tough to be a female elected official. especially in these times. Sometimes, you know, when you go knock doors and everything, people think back to what they experienced in the past. So if somebody asks you, how are you different than our previous female governor that we had? Because sometimes they'll just fall back and say, oh, we just got another Granholm, or we got. So I'd like something to say to people, how are you different than Jennifer Granholm?
So I'm glad you put this out there because I think that that's important. And obviously, this is not the first time I've heard it, and I appreciate your wanting to know how to respond. So when there are so few women in office, we all get compared to one another.
Right.
Men don't have to deal with that. No one would say, oh God, we just had a man poison a city. We can't ever have another man governor, right?
Right.
But this is what I deal with. So here it is. I served with 3 different governors during my time in the legislature. There's one that had a better way of getting an agenda accomplished than the other 2, and that was John Engler. Now, I'm not singing John Engler's praises, but he had that legislative background to know how to use the levers of power to make his agenda a reality, and he was fearless about doing that. When you compare me to any of the last 3 governors, I'm a lot more like that than the last 2. We need a governor who can go in on day one and govern, who knows how to use the levers of power in that executive office to make our priorities a reality, and who is fearless about doing that. My gender has nothing to do with why I'm running for office and what I stand on. I've got a record I'm proud of. I am tougher than anyone else who's running for governor, and I'm going to prove it through this election. But what's more important is I've got the values that put a plan together, you know, that are reflected in our plan that we're going to get elected on and make a reality, because I know how to get it done.
Nice answer.
Thank you.
That's exactly not that you need my approval, but that's the exact right answer. John Engler was not someone I got along with well at all.
Yeah.
But he could get from point A to point B better than anyone I've.
You know, we're hiring someone to run government, and after 7 years of Snyder and after 11 months of Trump, hopefully we understand that, listen, we're not looking for someone to, you know, that from any other walk. We need someone to run government. We need someone who knows what the heck they're doing. And I often think about just even Flint. If this governor had a clue what was really going on with people in this state, that was connected with people, that had any political antenna, who would have shown up in a community, this wouldn't have festered for 2.5 years. But we're paying a price for inexperience, and some people are paying the worst price possible for it.
What do you think about Enbridge pipeline?
So, you know, we in Michigan are defined by our water. Our borders are defined by water. Our psyche is defined by our water. I grew up in Grand Rapids on the Thornapple River, and I used to fish off the dock in Onekama. You know, I mean, water is, I think, crucial to our economy, to our psyche, and to our livelihood. Because of the abundance we have, right? 21% of the world's fresh water is in and around Michigan. Because we have so much, we've been terrible stewards of it. We've got a pipeline underneath the Straits of Mackinac. We've got Nestle that's pulled a lot of water out without paying for it. We've got algae blooms in different communities. And we got a city full of families that still can't, you know, reliably use the water coming out of their taps. I think we can harness the brains, the research universities, and the water here and become the finest stewards of water. I want to create a department of the Great Lakes and fresh water and pull in the best scientists and make use of all these great resources we have and show the world how water should be managed. And I think we need to shut down the pipeline underneath the Straits of Mackinac. It's one of the things on day one that I'm ready to do is file to enjoin the easement. But I think it's important that we recognize, and I think a lot of people are talking about shutting it down. We have to know, though, there's not a spigot in the governor's office that you can just go in and turn. We got to have a real legal strategy because we're up against Enbridge on this, and it's in their interest to have protracted, legal case, because the longer they can keep the pipeline, the more money they make. So that's why I say on day one we will file that effort to enjoin the easement, And we will pursue it until there is no more oil going underneath the Great Lakes. A million jobs depend on the Great Lakes, and agriculture and tourism. And what if we created a blue economy here in Michigan? And people look to Michigan to find out how to manage water. Sometimes when things are as bad as they get, like a city like Flint, it's an opportunity to make a huge leap forward and learn the lessons and use it as an opportunity to make this the state people learn from how to manage water. Yes?
How are you going to address the hot button issues of abortion and guns?
So I'm pro-choice, period. You know, I've always wanted and worked with anyone who wants to prevent unwanted pregnancy on the front end, and maybe there's a place for common ground on that. But I do have people who are maybe not as eager to embrace being pro-choice, but who are a part of the campaign, who are helping me make sure that I always try to also focus on child poverty and making sure that we expand the discussion to not just that of choice, but how we treat those among us who are struggling, right? And maybe that's a way to open up a conversation, because I know we want to make it a place where people can come to eventually. But I am pro-choice, and I'm unabashedly so. With regard to guns, you know, we've seen a lot of obviously discussion based on everything that's happening in the news, and the legislature's move to change the laws in Michigan to permit concealed weapons in schools and bars, and so we have to talk about it. Michigan's got a hunting heritage. I recognize that. I grew up in a household with a hunter in our household. Every responsible gun owner I know says that they support background checks, keeping guns out of the hands of people with mental illness or domestic violence or criminal backgrounds, and also keeping them out of places that serve alcohol or have children. And I think that those are gun safety measures that make a lot of sense and make sense to most gun owners. But I do think it's important to recognize that our heritage of hunting in Michigan, and to say, you know, that's important.
Are there any current gun laws that you would work to revoke or amend?
Well, if I were in office right now and the legislature was pushing this through, I don't know if Snyder's going to sign this legislation or not, but I would veto it. So that's one example. If he signs it, that's something that I think we'll need to repeal immediately. Mm-hmm. And I would like to have a legislature to help me get that done.
What would you do to revoke the right to work law?
So when right to work passed, obviously it passed both chambers of the legislature, and the governor signed it into law. When I say this is a perfect segue into I would like a legislature to work with. You know, next year we've got an opportunity, I think, to play the short game. I don't think Democrats have played the short game or the long game well in quite a while, frankly. The short game next year is running the tables on the governor's race, secretary of state, and the attorney general's race. We can level a lot of barriers to voting by doing that, and increase the potential that we get a legislature that reflects the public of this state. We also have an opportunity to take back the House. Now, it's not easy because we are so gerrymandered in Michigan. The Senate, unfortunately, we won't be able to take back until voters, not politicians, is on the ballot, and we pass it and we go through the next redistricting after the census in 2020. So I tell you all of this because the legislature will continue, or the Senate will definitely continue to be Republican after this election, and until we change redistricting in Michigan. To get right to work to my desk, I gotta get it out of both chambers of the legislature. I will sign it in a heartbeat. I fought it when they pushed it through, and I'm eager to repeal it, because I know what it means for working people across the state. But we've got to take back the Senate in order, or get a lot closer in the Senate in order to have that possibility. That being said, I think that a strong governor who knows how to use the power of the budget and organize government can do a lot to strengthen the rights of individual workers and unionized workers in Michigan. But right to work will require legislation. When I took my oath of office as the Senate Democratic leader, you know, it was just right after an election where if you totaled up all the votes cast for senators for Democrats and all the votes cast for Republicans for Senate, it was almost 50-50. But I took my oath of office as the Senate Democratic leader in a body of 38 members, and I was the leader of 12. So the votes didn't really count for the gerrymander. I should have been the leader of at least 18, if not a 19-19 tie. But because the way the districts are drawn, a super majority of our Senate seats are decided in a Republican primary right now. That represents only 50% of the votes that come out. And of that 50%, you know, I mean, it's just such a small fringe group that is deciding the majority, that decides the agenda for all of us. And I think that it was kind of that realization as I looked around the Senate to know that until we change redistricting in Michigan, it's going to be very hard to make that legislature do the agenda that the people of the state want and expect. Did anyone here work for Voters Not Politicians and collect signatures? All right. I mean, it was a phenomenal effort, and I'm so grateful for the work that you did.
Our fearless leader is not here today.
I know, it's weird now that you're done. It kind of makes me sad because I was so used to seeing people at every event collecting signatures. It was really a pretty impressive organization that came together.
Privatization question. Our current Secretary of Education is touting the charter school model, and I worked for the prison for 28 years, and unfortunately we saw privatization come there in the food service department. A lot of shenanigans involved in saying that either one of them's worth crap. They're using public money, but they're not required to meet the same benchmarks of the people they're replacing or saying they're doing. How do we curtail that?
I think we outlaw privatization of prisons, of schools, and of veterans' health care services. I think it's unconscionable that people are privatizing the incarceration of others, that people are profiting off of not delivering good education to our children, and that people are profiting off of abusing veterans. In this Grand Rapids Veterans Home, it was horrifying what happened. The conditions with what happened with Aaronmark in the prisons, the conditions of our for-profit charter school system. You know that there are charters in lots of states. Some of them are for-profit. The national average of for-profit charter schools across our country is like 12%. Do you know what the percentage is in Michigan? 84%. Think about how far out of whack Michigan is, and that's the DeVos agenda. This is the Republican agenda, you know, privatizing and corporations making money off of our taxpayer dollars and hurting us in the process. So I am unequivocally opposed to the privatization of anything that has to do with our correction system, frankly.
When they privatize the food service,
Yeah.
they said they're gonna have a riot.
Yep.
They had a riot after K-Rock, food service.
That's right.
They had a riot.
That's right.
They didn't want to call it a riot, but it was a riot.